I'm Ryan Eakin, and this is Talking Maple Leafs with Damian Topley, the manager of the Maple Leafs. Damon, thanks for coming on today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I want to ask you first about just the regular season. Outside the fact that you guys can hit some bombs, what's the number one thing that you learned about the Maple Leafs throughout the regular season?
Well, this team had a lot of grit. They didn't like there was games where we were down, a lot of runs and they didn't give up. We always tried, oh, that's such a corny term, tried our best to get back into games. But we lost the game 20-19 and we were down like 17 runs or something crazy, like or 15 runs at one point, and we just never quit. We always tried to chip away, and that shows a lot of heart and a lot of grit and determination.
Right. And you look at this past week, there was a lot of games that you guys had, and that was really the case throughout the entire season. It was a condensed schedule into 2 months. Just how tough was it managing this season, given, you didn't have a lot of arms, and when you did, even for teams that did, it's such a small, short season. So how tough was it managing this season?
Oh, it was I don't like the word to use impossible, but it was like I had no pitching some nights. Like I didn't know how I was going to get through the game.
Right.
You try to count innings and you're like, I don't have any options in the bullpen. Like somebody's going to have to take it for the team here, so to speak. And if they put up a 10 spot, they put up a 10 spot. And unfortunately, that's that happens some nights, and that's why you saw the records were so close in the standings. A lot of teams were only able to manage 500 because you honestly needed 13 pitchers, but that still wasn't enough. And like you mentioned, this week we had 4 games in 4 days. Like that's just like 5 and 6, right? Like it's just crazy. We're not used to playing in that short amount of time, and it was definitely the toughest year to manage, just because you had to figure out how you were just going to get through, like you said, back to back games.
Right. And obviously the lineup building the pitching stuff out a lot this season. Just when it comes to the lineup, the Maple Leafs have always had a great lineup going back to, basically your entire time with the Maple Leafs. But where does this offense rank then? You have a guy like Costello leading off and Riley Marr. Just where does this lineup rank in terms of some of the great Maple Leaf lineups in the last 2 decades?
Oh, it definitely reminds me a lot of the really powerful lineups where I had like, we had the Butler brothers or like Pete Orr. We had a lot of Danny Gibbons. We had some ex-pro guys in the lineup. Like it was 6 or 7 deep, and this one is definitely deep. Like they use the term "murderers row" with the Yankees. Like this is the IBL version. Jordan Costello is not your prototypical leadoff hitter. Like he started the game in Hamilton the other night with a home run. Like it's just it's one of the best offensive lineups that I've seen in a long time.
Right. And I was going to actually ask you about Costello because he comes in, he doesn't have an exact spot in the lineup, and you put him in the leadoff spot, which he's never played leadoff, at least in the IBL. And if he did, maybe back in his early days with Oshawa. Was this not just a matter of not only trying to get him going, but just say, I got to stack my best 5, 6 hitters instead of having that prototypical leadoff hitter?
Well, he's one of the best all-round hitters in the league and has been for the last 5 years. And he sees a lot of pitches. He knows what pitch he wants to hit. So, yeah, he doesn't, on paper, he doesn't look like a leadoff hitter. But if I got a guy going 2-2 counts, 3-2 counts to start the game, then that's my guy.
Right. Yeah, and then you look at the lineup, you take a look at Costello, Sean Riley, Justin Marr. There's a lot of top names that have been around for the last decade or so. And then you got Garrett Takamatsu, who's relatively new to the IBL, but he is as dominant as anyone. Just bringing him into the Maple Leafs, what were your expectations when you brought him in? And then just how do you reflect on the season that he's had this season?
Yeah, well, he's had a phenomenal season, but he had an unfortunate injury 2 summers ago and would have been that impactful bat in our lineup. And that's he was a rookie of the year in the IBL. Like it tells you that he can hit, and to have him in between a guy like Mara and or sorry Riley and a Connect or a Salazzo, anywhere you put him in the lineup, you're gonna have to pitch to somebody, and somebody's gonna get pitches they can hit, and he didn't miss. Like he like to have as many guys as we did in the top 10 of whatever offensive category you want to name, that just tells you that we had guys who could hit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, playing at Chrissy pitch is one thing, but you still have to hit, and this lineup
Yeah.
most certainly did that throughout this season. We kind of mentioned earlier about this week and how busy it was. From a manager perspective, you just take it game by game, for as cliche as that sounds, or especially knowing that the stakes are on the line of perhaps having home field advantage or perhaps having to, have a game one and well, and just how are you trying to balance, getting through a certain game and understanding that you have to play another game tomorrow night and the next night, while also understanding these games really do matter because home field advantage at Chrissy Pitch can make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and it wasn't even about that. It was about managing people and making sure they weren't getting hurt to go into the playoffs. Like we can't be limping into the playoffs.
Right.
We had to have guys healthy. So I almost managed it a game within a game just to make sure that we stayed on that safe side of injury, because if I was to lose one of those big bats before the playoffs, that'd be devastating, right? Then we're going in shorthanded, and that wasn't the intent of our season. Our intent was to get everything going. We had a veteran ball club, be ready to go when the playoffs started, because it is going to be a quick sprint these first two rounds. Like I've never been in a best of three before,
Right.
barely been in best of fives. It's mostly been best of sevens. So a best of three, there is no, you're going to have to manage pitch by pitch, inning by inning. Like you have to keep the games close.
Right. For sure. And before we get into the playoffs, something special happened this week with Sean Riley getting hit number 1,000. I saw a lot of people say, "Oh, he should have done it with the Guelph Royals," but a lot of his hits in the last, if you go back to 2013, if you now look in 2021, a lot of them come with the Maple Leafs. Just how great of a privilege has it been to manage Riley in the 2 seasons that you have managed him? And just what separates him from even the other elite hitters in the IBL?
Yeah, no, like, well, I think that's really cool that he did it both times. Like the home run record was with the Leafs, and then now the hit records with the Leafs. So it's kind of funny that way. And then we've been long time, even though we've never really played together, we've been long time friends in the league. Like obviously we saw each other for 25 straight years. So so you eventually become friends, or you're almost like a colleague, right? Because you're always on the field together. And we always talked about playing together or being on this in the same colors, and it's kind of cool that we get to do that, and he's had these tremendous honors both times. So I think that's really good for both the league and the franchise.
Right. And now you look at facing Hamilton. The number one thing that stands out when you face a team like Hamilton is they have two decent lefties with Chris Lazar and Ben Braun. Do you kind of look at Hamilton and say that's kind of the, if you guys can get to those guys, and is that kind of the biggest concern when you look at Hamilton, especially knowing how many lefties you guys have?
I think we've been facing lefties all year, and that's I've seen a lot of lefties, not just with Hamilton. I think a lot of teams had lefties that they used a lot. Like last Sunday against Brantford, it was two lefties. So um, yeah, it is what it is. But I think our guys have seen enough left-handed pitching this season that they'll be ready to go. And it's the playoffs. It shouldn't matter who's on the mound. You're gonna take your at bats and have good team at bats to get on base and win ball games.
Right. When you look at Hamilton, you got one of the best complete five-tool players in the IBL, and Justin Gideon. Just what are your overall impressions of Hamilton and the games that you've seen against them this season and the last couple of seasons? Because they have had pretty much the same group for the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, and that they've been an up and comer in the league. That they've really put themselves on the map, I guess, so to speak, with that young lineup, and they play that way. Stealing bases, getting that extra 90 feet, and Gideon's the best example of that, and that's why he's their leadoff hitter, because he's gonna play hard and try to get that extra base every time he comes up to bat, and he does have a little bit of pop in his bat. And there's about 3 or 4 guys in that lineup that you can't take lightly, because we saw it last Friday where it was a bloop and a blast, and all of a sudden we're down 3-1 in the first inning, even though we took a 1-0 lead. So those are the things we just have to be cautious of when we face them.
Right. And during the season, a lot of the talks about the Maple Leafs don't have a lot of top pitching, but your ace, Justin Secatello, joined you guys pretty late because of the fact that the league wasn't having American imports for the first 3 quarters of the season. Bringing a guy in like Secatello, just how important is that? And I guess he's going to be your ace. So just how big of an addition is that, especially given what he can do throughout the last half decade?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. We can, like, he doesn't get rattled. He's a veteran pitcher, and he throws strikes, and that's all we were looking for from all of our pitchers. And yeah, we were only 16 and 14, but like I said, it was just that type of season where it was tough on the pitchers. And having a Cicatello, and then we've got Dustin Richardson, and we have other veterans like Zach Sloan and Marek Deska that have been through these playoff runs before. So it's going to be a staff approach to these games, because it just the way the season unfolded.
Right. I'll ask you my last question. You look at the last few seasons, you guys made it to the finals against the Bay Cats back in 2016. You guys got swept. You guys have had a lot of other great long playoff runs, but falling up short. You guys kind of feel like you're past the hump in terms of, learning how to lose. I know the Costellos of the world have won multiple championships, but there's a lot of the Connor Lewises, the Grant Tamains. Do you think the losing is over in terms of, learning how to lose before you can win and trying to build with that group, and now it's finally time to win?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly where we've come to at this point in that journey. I've always told those guys, like I've been around for a long time. I've won championships, but I know what it takes. But it's different being the manager than you are as being the player. The players, even Castaldo would tell you, they had to lose before they won in Barrie. Brantford was before that. We beat Brantford in 2007, and then they went on their 6th championship run. It just you get there and then you see it, and it actually, the volume gets turned up, or there's an extra gear in those last few games of the season. Like it's really good baseball, and you have to be ready for it. And it gets, those mistakes get amplified in the semifinals and finals, and you can't make mistakes, and they'll kill you. Like in 2016, I think it was game 2 or game 3, we had bases loaded. If we push a couple runs across in that situation, the game's totally changed. And that outcome goes from being swept to maybe we go 7 games or 6 games. It's that minute in those types of environment.
Right, for sure. And you go back to that series, that was a sweep, but that was, as you said, that could have gone either way for sure. It could have been a Maple Leaf sweep if you look at all those 4 games. So I appreciate you coming on today, Damon, and looking forward to hopefully covering a long playoff run for the Maple Leafs this upcoming fall.
Yeah, me as well. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks,
Thanks
Damon.
for having me on.
Appreciate
Yep,
it.
no problem, man.